Welcome. I'm Alice Alicia Jones, and I will be doing Facebook Live today. I welcome you for joining to join in on this, and I'm very pleased to have you. Pleased to be here. This is I think, my fifth or sixth Facebook Live, and I'm just starting to get used to the format, starting to get used to the audience, starting to get used to um, the wonderful results that come from doing something that you know you're supposed to do. You know that you've been given this as a response to your call to do God's work. And the beauty is that no matter what it is that you're called to do, God will find the words to give you to help you with the situation. Um, I would like to introduce my book, Own Your Power Day by Day. I know that my lovely Karina Duran, my social media guru, posts this on 5 media websites every single day. And it's a lovely book. It has 750 pages approximately. It has a meditation for every single day, 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages at the most. And it fits today's lifestyle. I taught a Reiki class yesterday, and the one of the students there said that book speaks to my soul, and this is how I feel about it. I spent 20 years. It took me to get it out to the public. 16 years of writing and editing and re-editing before it was fully available, and then 4 years it just sat and rested. And finally, last May, it was published, May 28th. Today's uh, lecture or speech or interaction or whatever you want to call it is on choice, because I have discovered as a teacher that too many people feel so utterly hopeless in their lives. They feel somehow or other that their lives are out of control, that they can't do anything about what is happening to them. And they do not have the foggiest concept that they have a choice in the matter. First of all, the very first choice that comes is when you're in spirit. Because when you are in spirit, you sit with your council of 12. And when I say you, it's an aspect of you that's called the higher self. That part of you that is connected to your physicality, but also connected to God. And that part of you that never leaves you for even 1 second of your life and is with you at all times. So your higher self sits with a council of 11 other beings. This is called your council of 12. And these beings guide your journey in this lifetime that you are setting up for yourself. The lifetime is given to you because you've, first of all, chosen it. You've chosen to come to planet Earth. You may have also simultaneously chosen to come to another planet. And you've chosen to come in human form. You may have also chosen to come in vegetable or mineral form, but that's not the focus of today's talk. We're just going to talk about the choice that you made to come here to begin with. So, your higher self has sat with these other beings and has chosen the lessons that you wish to have in this lifetime. And those lessons consists of looking at what it is that you did in maybe the immediate previous lifetime that you just lived, but also all the other lifetimes. Your higher self has a access to the Akashic records, and the Akashic records are basically the sum total of every single life that you've ever lived, everything you've thought, said, and done. It's a giant computer, and it has the ability to track your lives. And so your higher self now knows what it is that you need to learn, and or what it is that is next in your process, the next step for you. So basically, your higher self, along with your council of 12, and those beings can consist of angels, archangels, ascended masters, Reiki masters, and they can also be your ancestors. They can be a former life of yours as an ancestor. And they are all in this together. All of them are planning this life for you. So you look at the life that you've agreed to live, and you look at who you have chosen for your parents, who you have chosen for your siblings, if there are going to be any, or you may have chosen to come in as an only child. You look and see what continent you've chosen, what race you've chosen to be, what uh, and what lessons you've come in for. Every single thing is delineated for you. Not only is everything delineated for you, but you are also given a movie screen of what that life is going to look like. So you really get a blow by blow description and a preview of your lifetime that you're considering on this planet. Um, that's to come. After you see the movie, you have the right to say yay or nay. I agree to this, or I don't agree to it. I am willing to live this life. I'm willing to come in under these circumstances. I'm okay with everything that I've seen, or choose another life. I'm not interested. So that's your first set of choices. Some of you have never heard that this is something you've engaged in. A lot of you have. And a lot of you have understanding that yes, there was a part of me that said I would be this, I would experience this. Now, there's something very interesting in watching that movie screen. The major junctions of your life are laid out, and major junctions are the major circumstances of your lifetime. But minor circumstances, you have free will. So therefore, you take and give expression to every day through the thoughts you think as a person of free will. So therefore, there is, and the beauty is that not only do we have free will, but because of that particular characteristic, we are one of God's creations. And in my understanding, one of the very few of God's creations that can say no to God. We do not have to follow his plan for us because effectively there are things that we control on a day to day level strictly through the thoughts that we think that change the whole trajectory of our life. So, anyway, uh, you are given the right, like I said, to say yay to the lifetime or no. And if you agree to the lifetime, then obviously you have chosen your parents, you've chosen the time of your birth, you've chosen the continent, you've chosen what race you're going to be, you've chosen the main circumstances. Are you going to be born in a refugee camp? Are you going to be born into wealth? Are you going to be born into poverty? Are you going to be born where there's nothing but ice and snow on the ground most of the time, if not all of the time? Are you going to be born in utter heat? Are you going to be born into devastation? So you effectively um, have already set that up. And then the next thing that happens, obviously, you come here as a baby. And if you, those of you who have had experience with babies, know at least this is the way I feel is that when I can get a baby to smile at me, it it raises my vibrations to such a high level. I am just so uh, engaged with in the energy field of that smile that it lifts me up, it elevates me, and it makes me feel absolutely fantastic. Look at what most babies do. They react to you either with a blank stare, but you continue to talk to them, you continue to coo at them, you can get them to smile. And if they're uncomfortable about something, they cry. And that discomfort, then hopefully the mother is a responsible mother, that baby, that soul has chosen wisely. And that baby, it then is comforted by the mother or whoever is the caregiver of that child. So that child learns to adapt to his universe, learns to respond to his universe because he learns to mimic what he sees or she sees around him or her. The baby comes in most of the time, and there are exceptions to this, but most of the time, that baby comes in with a blank slate. I'm not going to go into past lives, which absolutely can color the way the baby reacts to this lifetime. It can color the way the baby reacts to his environment. It can color the way the baby reacts to one of the parents or both of the parents. Um, but that's going to be another time when I talk about past lives. Uh, I won't color. I won't talk about that now. So effectively, that little one, that little soul, learns to grow and respond to to his everything new in his life according to what he witnesses that his parents are doing. If his parents are enlightened, that child obviously grows more. Sometimes the child, the baby, has come in order to be the catalyst for growth for the parent. I have seen that, where the parents are mystified as to what their child is all about because their child has certain characteristics or certain actions or certain um, things that they're doing that seem to totally puzzle the parent, and that too is something that needs to be discussed, but not at this time. Eventually, the baby learns to differentiate. and to differentiate between thinking. And the thoughts that come in can be positive or can be negative. If the child lives in a hopeless environment, a very sadistic, a very cruel environment, then the thoughts that that child comes in with can turn to a very negative nature. If the child comes in a positive, loving, warm environment, those the actions of the people around him nurture that little soul and have it grow to a place where it feels the comfort and the joy around it, and then is determined to give more comfort and more joy, since babies tend to emulate what they see around them. The parent is the first role model for the baby. And eventually, uh, leaving the baby, let's just go into again, the topic of this series right now, which is choice, that everything is choice. So, the first thing that I've stressed is that you had a choice in the circumstances of what you are going to experience on this lifetime in all the major circumstances, strictly because you saw what your higher self and your council of 12 had chosen for you and agreed to it. So now you come in, and there are two ways of thinking on this planet: there's positive thinking and there's negative thinking. Most of the time, the psychologists that track these things, I have heard or and read statements that have said that the average human will think negative thoughts about 80% of the time. And when you stop to think of how many thoughts you have, and there's figures out there that I don't know how they can possibly prove these figures, but I do know one of the figures was 64,000 thoughts in a 24-hour period. So if 64,000 thoughts are thought and 80% of them were negative, you're talking about an enormous number of negative thoughts. There's a problem here because most of us want positive outcomes. And if we have nothing but negative thoughts that we're thinking, how in the world do we attract positive outcomes? So then the question is, how do we even become aware when our thoughts are negative? And I know that as I grew up in a family where I witnessed a grandmother who normally, her normal reaction to anything in life was to cry. She had an unfortunate marriage that when she was pregnant with her fifth child, her husband decided that he no longer wanted to stay in Poland. And so he immigrated to Canada. And he was only able at that time to take her and one baby with her. He was not able to take the others. So she was not willing to leave her children with her parents. Unfortunately, her father was an alcoholic. He was a blacksmith. He could have provided very, very handsomely for the family, but he didn't because he was an alcoholic. And so every single spare bit of money that he earned went to drink. And so she was not willing to let her children suffer that fate without being there for her, with them. So what happened then was that he left her in Poland, and what she did was that she then had to turn and find a means to take care of this family. Once a year, he would send her money.
We are having technical problems. The Facebook is stopped, but we are going to start a new one again. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
This one
You
is,
can continue.
yeah, this one seems to be fine.
Yes, yes. Twitter and
YouTube.
Twitter and YouTube are recording, but
Okay.
Facebook stop.
Stop.
But
Okay.
I will tell our followers,
Okay.
your followers, and then
Okay. Technical difficulties. Sorry,
Mhm.
but Karina's going to take care of that. So anyway, her husband for 10 years ended up sending money to the family once a year, and he would send some money, but that didn't go very far. But after 10 years, he stopped writing, and she was completely on her own. And she learned very, very quickly in that experience that if she resorted to tears, she could get somebody to take pity on her. And if they took pity on her, they would help her, and they would take pity on the children. And eventually, that's exactly what happened. One wealthy person in the village that she lived in with her family, Tomaszów Lubelski, where I was born, um, would take like one of the children to feed and help clothe them. So she quickly understood that, oh, crying was a means to an end. And crying was something that she could resort to. Um, and she did. She did a lot of crying. It seemed like my memories of her was that she cried all the time. And it's unfortunate, but that's not normal in problem solving and resorting to tears. People do it, but
We are starting a new Facebook Live.
okay.
So say hello again to your followers.
Okay.
Okay, please.
All right. And we just had Facebook Live come on track again. So I want to say hello and apologize for the uh, technical difficulties that we encountered. Um, Unfortunately, my mother picked up the same technique, and instead of problem solving, my mother resorted to tears, and she felt, okay, if I cry, something will happen that will make this problem go away, get better. It'll somehow be a solution to the problem. Unfortunately, most of the time it wasn't. And as a result, in my very earliest adult life, I resorted to the same techniques. And I it took me a long time before I recognized that I was no longer going to cry because I did not want to do that. I did not feel that crying was going to solve anything. And because I was crying, I didn't feel that I didn't try to get a solution because I was just so wrapped up in the negative emotion. And unfortunately, uh, I made some disastrous uh, mistakes in those early years. But who of us doesn't? There's very few young people that will make exactly all the right choices, will make the right choices. But I took, and once I decided that I was no longer going to cry and that this is not going to be what I was going to turn to solve my problems. Uh, I do have an interesting story about that situation. Uh, I came home and do not remember the exact circumstances of what I was crying about, but I know I sat down on the couch in the family room, and this was in our middle house, and we had a beautiful family room on the first floor. And I was literally crying as if my heart would break. And it felt like somebody grabbed a hold of my head, pulled it back, and just said in a voice inside my head, I will not cry anymore. And once I had that experience, I didn't. Yes, I cry, but not at on that kind of level, and not as a solution because I'm frustrated with my problems. It doesn't work that way. So anyway, I was very, very grateful to have had that kind of experience because at the time, crying was just something I did. Crying was just a technique that I turned to. And I didn't even recognize that, oh my God, I was following in the footsteps of my mother and following in the footsteps of my grandmother. And that this was not going to be the way I was going to choose things, to do things. At the same time, I can remember around the same time, it was about the time I was 34. I remember that I used to have headaches, and I never had migraines because I would read about migraines and I thought, no, I didn't have blinding pain. I didn't have that. But I used to have headaches enough to where I had to take Advil, I had to take Tylenol, I had to take aspirin and everything. And I made the decision, no more headaches. I'm not going to have a headache. And I actually haven't had one since. I don't even come close to having a headache, but I chose that for myself. And there was another thing that happened to me when I moved to Virginia because I had come from New Jersey and prior to that, New York, and then prior to that, Michigan. Um, I, in a very short time, around between April and May, all of a sudden I realized I was sneezing and sneezing rather convulsively. So I thought, "Oh, okay, it didn't take me long to figure out I'm allergic to pollen. I didn't know which type of pollen, but it was obvious. Virginia has so many flowering trees, flowering shrubs, the grasses, the flowers, everything here.
Yes.
So I used to take antihistamines. And the antihistamines, unfortunately, I would wake up in the middle of the night and feel as almost like I was shriveled. I would be so dried up. So I decided that I didn't want antihistamines, that I absolutely was not interested in having any kind of allergy to pollen. And again, it took me a while to talk to my body and get my body to say no, that this is the path that I've chosen for myself. Get my body to understand that this is what I wanted for myself. So I was able then to never have to take another antihistamine. There are some years, because obviously in Virginia, there are some years where everything flowers at once. We had that a couple years ago. Do I ever feel like I have a runny nose, or do I ever feel like I have a problem with pollen? I will, but never to the point where I feel I have to take an antihistamine. Absolutely never. And because I made that choice for myself.
Yes, there is Deji Noguera who is follow you in the video. Also, Mary Wilson, they join you again. So
Welcome. Thank you.
Deji and Mary.
Veggie?
Deji
Deji?
Noguera.
Deji.
Yes,
Deji
she's
and
from Venezuela.
Mary. Welcome.
Also, Janelle. Janelle is also joining you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you being here. And anyway, you might have to go to some of the earlier recording to get the first part of this. But yesterday, when I taught Reiki class, I mentioned the same incident about choice, that you can choose perfect health for yourself. And then, because one of the gals uh, also had been plagued by horrible headaches. And I had told her my story about, making a choice that I no longer wanted to have headaches, and I haven't had one. And so and that was in the Reiki 1 class. Well, yesterday was Reiki 2. And so she gave me feedback. She said, in the 30 days that had taken place between Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, where she used to get a headache every day, she now only got one in 30 days. So she felt very pleased with herself, very, very positive. And her basic comment was, I didn't know I had a choice in this. You do. You absolutely do. But let's look at some of the things that affect our health, because who in the world does not want perfect health? We all do. That's something we strive for. The irony to being a billionaire is the billions that a person might accumulate will not buy health. And unfortunately, there are some very, very wealthy people that are very, very sick. And so, but let's look at some of the things that affect our health and some of the choices that we make when we are working towards perfect health. The first is diet. You have to be able to choose foods that nourish your body. And food and drink. You have to drink enough water, not sodas, not coffee, not caffeine, not alcohol, but pure, clean water in order to flush toxins out of your body. 8 glasses a day, 64 ounces. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter how you break that up. You can walk out the door first thing in the morning having drunk half of that consumption. So, but I do not recommend that you drink a lot of water before you go to bed at night, because then you'll be waking up to go to the bathroom. But if you cram nothing but junk food, if you cram nothing but sugar, or even if you take an excess amount of these items, is your diet the right diet for you? If you only saw organically how your molecules react to the items that you ingest, you would probably never put certain items in your mouth. So you just have to Understand how your own body reacts to the different things you eat. If you break out into hives when you eat shellfish, obviously you can't eat shellfish. Even if you love it, you can't eat shellfish. I happen to love them, and there are certain textures of certain shellfish that I don't like, and I can't ingest. But for the most part, I absolutely adore shellfish, but I don't consume it excessively because I do know that an excessive amount of iodine can wreak havoc. There are certain greens, and the one of the things that I encourage you to learn about diet is the color of your chakras. The colors are the same colors as the colors of the rainbow, and the colors of food that are the same colors as the colors of the chakras are what nourish that chakra. And most of the time, every single color of the foods that you eat are going to be plant based. So your root chakra is red. There's red meat. So some of you consume a ton of red meat. Some of you consume very little. Some of you consume none. Again, you have to know what your body is willing to tolerate and how it feels after everything. Diet alone is not going to be the answer. There's also exercise. We live in a society that effectively is very sedate. A lot of us sit at a job, and a lot of us, unfortunately, sit in front of a computer. And there is certain things that will then could trigger there could be radiation from the computers. There are certain crystals, sugilite is one of them, that can eliminate the vibrations from uh, the that radiate forth from a computer. But also, just some people say, well, I can't afford a gym membership. You've already got a built-in gym in your own body. You've got 2 legs. All you really have to do is learn to love to walk. And if you say that I hate to walk, you're in trouble because basically walking is one of the greatest things that you can do for your body, not running. Running is heavy, it pounds, it can lead to all kinds of problems with your shins, with your knees, with your hips. Uh, so running isn't the answer, but walking is. So effectively, just know that this is something that you can do. And even walking, I do remember one of my clients came to me and she had knee issues. And her physical therapist, one of the techniques that he gave her was just to walk up and down a set of stairs 10 times every day in her own home. Some of you don't live in an apartment that has stairs, but most of you at least have accessibility to stairs at least part of the time of your life. It could be in your office building, it could be on the way to an apartment, and you can easily walk up and down a 10 sets of stairs. So exercise again, critical. Then the next thing is sleep. There are people that need less sleep. There are people that need more sleep. There are people that have sleep apnea, that they're not getting full night's sleep. My acupuncturist, bless his heart, I gave me a technique or a clue as to how I could increase a deeper sleep for each night because I was going through difficulty sleeping through the night and falling back to sleep once I woke up. And he said, take one probiotic just before you go to bed. And he said, you will sleep like a baby. And the amazing thing is that it works. At least I have found it works for me. So I'm absolutely thrilled. It does have, it doesn't have any drying effect on my body. It's not like an antihistamine, and I think if I remember correctly, the cost of the bottle was very reasonable. I think it was 7.99, and if I remember correctly, there was way over 100 capsules in the bottle. So it wasn't an expensive, it's not going to be an expensive endeavor for me to take one probiotic. This is not a prebiotic. Prebiotic, for those of you who suffer from indigestion or bloating stomach, apparently a prebiotic is the answer for that. But there are other videos out there that can give you a whole lot more information on that. But you need to get enough sleep. The other thing that too about sleep, I always tell my guides when I want to be awakened, no matter what time it is. Sometimes I have to get up for whatever reason at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I will tell my guides when I want to be awakened. I do set my alarm on my phone, and it's amazing how often my alarm will go off 5 minutes after I've already awakened because my guides have awakened me. And I'm in a kind of a dream state, but I know I'm awake. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. And I have so many times where I just feel this is amazing. But I know that this is the state of being that I live in. I live with the awareness that my guides can help me live my life. I do recommend that if you set an alarm, nothing jarring, because a jarring alarm, that's the first thing you're exposed to. That's the first thing you're going to hear in the morning if the alarm wakes you. That can do an awful number on your body. And so, I mean, it just makes sense. Um, the next thing, and before we get into the positive and negative thinking, is the reaction to stress. So, stress is something that we all have in our life. And the irony to stress is what stresses one person, another person might find energetic. What stresses one person, another person might find exhilarating. So, effectively, everybody's going to react differently to stress. Um, Depending upon what their life situation is, depending upon how they have acclimated themselves, what kind of job they have, whether or not they work, uh, what are the pressures in their life. So, reaction to stress is is going to be absolutely critical. But that brings me right into the the next thing, and I probably hopefully we'll be able to finish what I have to say with this in this video. Otherwise, we'll go on to another one. But the ultimate thing that's going to make your choices better choices for you is basically the sanctity of positive thinking. There's negative thinking and there's positive thinking. And one of the things that is going to have to happen to you is to increase your awareness of how many times you think negative thoughts. You're going to have to spend a day doing nothing else except monitoring your thoughts. Because I reached a point in my life, there was a period in my life where I literally thought that God had forgotten about me. Everything that could possibly happen that was negative was happening to me. And it was the one of the lowest points in my life. But I also, at the same time, also had just given birth to a baby. And that baby did nothing but smile at me. So I also recognized that that baby was a gift from God for me and that I could not let that child down. The circumstances of my life that brought me to my knees was basically that uh, we had to close our real estate office because the interest rates had hit 17% and we could no longer sell. You couldn't practically give a house away, forget about selling one. And so we had to close our office down. My husband had to find a job. I had to just take care of the property management and pare my bills down to a place where I could handle them. So I thought, I went from $7,000 a month commitment in bills to $4,000 a month commitment in bills. So paired out $3,000. But I looked at my guaranteed income. I had $400 a month guaranteed income. And when I think back at that time, I get again, I know that I've always had the hand of God working in my life. But one of my friends, when I was kind of sharing my misery with her, she said, "Oh, Alice, you just have to find a zero somewhere." And I thought, yeah, my life feels like a big fat zero right now. So, but anyway, the amazing thing was that in spite of the fact that I only had $400 a month guaranteed income, and that was from the property management company that uh, I had built up in real estate. Um, I was able to pay my bills on time every single month. And I kept track of where every single penny came, how it came to us. And of course, one of the ways that the money came to us was my piggy bank. I had actually had a piggy bank and had to rate it, uh, to buy whatever I had to buy that day. But at the end of the year, at the end of the first year, when I calculated where the money had come from, I had found that it came from 33 sources. And I thought, that's interesting because 33 years was the number of years that Christ was on the planet. And I had income from 33 sources. So I felt that was kind of like a cosmic uh, sign to me that no matter how low you think you've gotten, how low you think you've fallen, you're going to be okay. And the second year was better. But for 10 years, I kept a journal monthly of every single bill I had to pay and every single dollar that I could expect in income. And miraculously, it's again, interestingly enough, every single month, it seemed like my expenses increased by just a little bit. And every single month, my income increased by just a little bit. So again, it was as if the hand of God was reaching out to me and saying, "We're taking care of you. We're taking care of you." But it took me 10 years before I gave up that journal. And then, because then at that point, I had exceeded the 7,000 in expenses. And I think, if I remember correctly, I was up to $10,000 in expenses. And yet there was $10,000 a month in income to cover it. So I thought, well, should I worry? No. But again, month after month after month after month, it spirit took care of me. And but that doesn't mean that we didn't do our part. We cut back, like I said, every single thing we had to cut back on that wasn't a luxury. And we only added them back one thing at a time as our income increased. And now the I just want to concentrate on positive thoughts and negative thoughts. Your negative thoughts can invade your psyche without you even being aware that you're thinking negatively. You could think instead that, oh, I'm just being realistic. I'm just thinking about what is. And effectively, the only problem with concentrating on negative thinking and negative thoughts is the fact that every single thought that you put out is what you magnetize back to you. And if because you're a magnetic being and the what's going to come back to you is what you send out. That's covered. That premise is covered in this book quite a lot. In fact, the first 2 months, January and February, the main theme is the outer reflects the inner. So what you're thinking is what you see out there. And this is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You do have to order it. You can order it from Balboa Press. You can order it from my website. So, and it's available both in hardback and in paperback. And the paper cover, the soft cover, is $26.99. The hardcover is $36.99. But like I said, it takes a year to get through a single meditation. Um, the you cannot expect to be constantly thinking negative thoughts and expect positive results. It doesn't work that way. Einstein has a quote, and I hope I'm quoting it correctly. It said, "The version of insanity is to do the same thing and expect different results." And effectively, you could say the same thing about thinking. If you think the same thing, you cannot expect different results. It's not going to happen. So what you have to recognize is that thinking positive thoughts is a choice. It does make you available to attract more positive experiences in your life. There is a wonderful, I think it's a statement by Esther Hicks in Ask and It Is Given. And she's the ultimate guru of positive thinking. She basically said, if 99 things are going wrong in your life and one thing is going right, focus and concentrate on the one thing that's going right. And I absolutely agree with that. But how do you figure out if you're on a negative thought track? You really have to take a day where you monitor your thoughts. And every time, I know the technique that I used was to see a stamp, like a bank stamp that said cancel, cancel. And every time that I had a negative thought come in, I did that bank stamp. And that bank stamp made me aware of the fact that, yeah, I was there. I was probably every three thoughts out of four, 75% of my life was involved in negative thinking. And so, why did I expect to see positive results when all I thought about all day long was coulda, shoulda, woulda? And in fact, cut those words out of your life. Do not even, they have no place. And just know that you're choosing to think positively is not a Pollyanna endeavor. It's your way of saying, I'm taking back control of my life. I am going to do exactly what I want to do. I want these and these and these and these results. So, therefore, I am going to choose to think positively. And I also am very, very aware when others around me think negatively, I insulate myself from that. And I usually come back with a very snappy comeback for the to the person, and if I don't, I just kind of like back off and think, nope, that's not how I think. So I don't have to contradict another. I don't have to impress them with my point of view. I basically just have to say to myself, that's not for me. That's not the way I think. That's not what I'm going to do. Uh, Whatever I'm going to, and then I put in its place what it is that I'm after. And I have found that my most important endeavor in my life has been to in or I should say not my most important, but one of the things that I've striven for is to increase awareness of, first of all, what it means to be human. The fact that I am a little piece of God acting as the eyes, ears, nose, throat, arms, legs, heartbeat of God, and that I have a choice in everything I think, say, and do. I am not a victim of my circumstances. I can choose otherwise. And I can choose how I want to live my life, what it is that I want to experience, and where it is that I want to go with this. So please give yourself a break. It doesn't matter how devastating it feels, how trapped you feel, how misunderstood you feel. If you can sit and go within and meditate and get the guidance from your own guides to take the next step, to get out of the situation, to take uh, find a refuge from what it is that you feel trapped in. That's what you have to do. And in the meantime, send love to every single being that is there around you that you feel is a disaster in your life. Just send love to them. And hopefully, if they've done horrible things to you, you can also send forgiveness, uh, because you really need to get out of any single thing that traps you in a place where negative thinking is revolving around you. So I just want to close that I do not want you to feel as if you are a victim, because you are not. I do want you to know that you have a choice in everything you think, say, and do. You have free will to change your mind about whatever circumstances you're in. And if you're in circumstances that do not honor you, if you're being abused mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, then you yourself have to find the way to then get out of that situation. And just know that once you put the intent to get out, it will happen. And I will cover intent next month and continue the power of positive thinking next month. Thank you for joining, and I bid you adieu. I'm Alice Alicia Jones. And till next month, we'll see you. And in the meantime, Own Your Power is available on Amazon, Balboa, Barnes & Noble, and Alibris, Books A Million, and probably any other bookstore that can order the books. Thank you again. Bye-bye now. Ah, okay.